Good morning. I'm George Hassel, and this is my wife, Julia, and we are proud to serve as co-chairs of SARRC's 14th Annual Community Breakfast. Just 2 years ago, I attended my first breakfast. Like you, I was sitting out there. I'm not exactly sure how I got up here, but we are very honored to serve this very special community. Autism has profoundly touched our lives in many ways, but for those that know me best, they know that I spend my life analyzing numbers and trends. The trend that keeps me up at night right now is the growth in the incidence rate of autism. It is alarming. Both nationally and here in Arizona, it is a trend that we must counteract with a great sense of urgency. It is now my pleasure to introduce our sponsors who are committed to helping us fight this trend. Our presenting sponsors, Tiffany and Bosco, Great American Title. Our platinum sponsor, Tri-West Healthcare Alliance. Our gold sponsors, APS and JP Morgan Chase. Our silver sponsors, Alliance Beverage, Arizona Residential Architects, Cox Charities, First Western Trust, SCF Arizona, and Snell and Wilmer. And the many bronze sponsors listed on the screens throughout the room. Again, this breakfast wouldn't be possible without their generous support. Also, many thanks to all the contributors who supported this event today. What a great job. Special thanks to the artistic team whose contributions went above and beyond.
George and I have 4 fantastic children. Our children do not have autism, but some of their friends and their classmates do. As a mom, I've learned that the little things we do can have a big impact in our community. When we have a special friend over to play at our house for the afternoon, it gives the family living with autism every day a brief respite. It also gives that child with autism an opportunity to play and interact with his typical peers. Perhaps most importantly, though, it reminds our family to practice patience and compassion. So please, don't forget that everything we do matters. We would also like to take a moment to acknowledge the dignitaries and elected officials here with us today who share in our commitment of building greater capacity for our community to serve the many families affected by autism. Please hold your applause to the end. As I call your name, please stand and remain standing. State Senator Debbie McCune Davis. State Senator Adam Driggs. State Senator Robert Mesa. State Representative Doris Goodale. State Representative Dr. Eric Meyer. Phoenix Mayor Greg Stanton. Phoenix Councilman Jim Waring. Director, Arizona Department of Health Services, Will Humble. Arizona Department of Housing Director, Michael Traylor. And Consul General of Mexico, the Honorable Victor Trevino.
I'd like to now introduce our co-chairs, Tim and Sarah Newquist. As many of you know, they face the challenges of autism daily. It has been our great pleasure to become their friends and join them in this effort. Tim likes to say that we share a commitment to being all in our endeavors. Tim and Sarah, we are all in. Please join me in welcoming them to the stage.
George, thank you, my friend, and I gotta say it's been a pleasure. It's been a good ride with the two of you for this breakfast, so thank you. SARRC would not be known if not for three key elements. The first two is a tremendous board led by Chairman Howard Sobelman. The second, a wonderful grandparents group led by Kathy Bosco. And the third, and in my opinion, the probably most important element, is the SARRC staff. This staff goes over the call of duty on a daily basis. And as parents of having children in the community school, we know that we can represent all parents and say thank you. Would you please join me in thanking them? Last year, I stood on this stage and I told you about my daughter, Gracie. You have kept Gracie in your thoughts and in your prayers. And even out in the marketplace, you've come up to me and you have asked, Tim, has your prayer for a miracle come true? I gotta tell you that we have been waiting for this moment for quite some time. So we'd like to share this quick video update with you. Please look.
I wake up and brush my teeth and wash my face and eat breakfast and go to school. We line up and hold hands and then we go outside.
It's just amazing the kids here at the school just have this understanding that we're all kids and we're all playing and they're just excited to hang out and play together. And you know, they understand Gracie can't talk verbally and she can't answer, but they know what she wants and what she wants to do and what she likes and doesn't like. And I think Gracie just has people that she just trusts and lets in, and it's just great to see them play and interact together.
Gracie's my best friend.
You're her friend and you are her
Voice.
And why are you her voice?
Because she doesn't have a voice. I help Gracie by pushing hold buttons on her tacos.
I want to eat. I feel it roll up. Please.
As a dad, I don't know if she'll ever say a word like daddy or I love you. And so selfishly, I want her to speak. I would love for her to communicate with me.
You want a Twizzler? Yes. Yes. Do you want a crayon?
No.
No. Good job.
So when she started saying it, I kind of glanced at my wife and was like, did I really hear what she just said? And it was kind of an emotional moment, as you can imagine. But it's a moment that's forever engraved in my heart and in my mind. Again, no parent wants to hear their child tell them no, but Gracie can tell me no whenever she wants.
Gracie say I, and she said I. And I said, Gracie say love, and she said love. And I said, say mom, and she said mom. And just the look on her face and having my little girl say that back to me, it was just amazing to hear just that from her and know that that was just a gift.
Gracie's voice is one of the many blessings we have received from SARRC. This video shows a little girl whose future is bright and filled with hope. 2 years ago, we sat in this very room with the new diagnosis of autism. With many questions and no answers, we turned to SARRC. Through Jumpstart and the community school programs, we quickly learned that our family had not been uprooted, simply replanted in a bigger garden. This journey can seem very lonely, but with SARRC, you are not alone. With the support of the staff and other families, we are navigating this road together. It is my delight to introduce to you another community school mom. Please join me in welcoming Victoria Lawrence.
Good morning. After nearly 15 years of marriage and successful careers, my husband and I decided our lives just weren't complete without kids. It didn't happen right away, but eventually we were blessed with twin boys, Finnegan Reed and Gavin Gray, both 4.5 years old now. When a child is born, it's like a seed, in our case, 2 seeds. And that seed has endless possibilities. Holding those little newborns in our arms, I saw a ray of light, a flash forward of everything I was excited to see them experience. Sports, friendships, relationships, girlfriends, college, careers, marriage, and someday being parents themselves. And then you hear the word autism, and in my case, I heard it twice, both of my boys. And it all goes dark. Initially, I was in denial, and then I got angry. How dare anybody tell me there's anything wrong with my beautiful children? They're perfectly fine in every single way. But they weren't. I knew it. And I eventually had to accept that. So I got the strength and hit the ground running. And I ran, and I ran, and I ran into a lot of wait lists. And lists, and lists, and lines, and lines. And it turns out there are a lot of other people desperate for the help that we were seeking, and clearly not enough resources. We lost a lot of valuable time on those wait lists. And then we found SARRC, my ray of light, that flash forward of hopes and dreams for the boys, all came back. And in just 8 months at the community school there, our boys have blossomed. They've had their first word, their first sentences. They're engaging playtime with other kids where before they would just sit and watch a car go back and forth by themselves. But the most heartfelt change for me since they've started SARRC, eye contact. They used to look right through me as if I was nobody, as if I wasn't even there. And now they look at me, and I can tell that they know I'm their mom. It's awesome. It really is awesome. SARRC gave our family a future, and the boys' teachers, Brent, Elise, and Tiffany, table 149. We love you. All 3 of you have given us hope beyond what we could have ever imagined when we first got the diagnosis. Now I'm excited about the adventures of being a mother and watching our boys grow and succeed. Thank you.
about the time when he was 18 months of age, he was saying quite a few words, and he was always like referencing you, making eye contact, and very cheerful. And then he started losing all of that. He started losing words. And not only that, it was just really hard to get his attention at all. But we scheduled an appointment with a developmental pediatrician to talk about it. They confirmed that he had autism.
He was first diagnosed. I just went home and cried and cried and cried and cried. And I didn't know what I was supposed to do.
You know, my biggest fear was that this is a lifelong thing. There's no cure, right? So no matter what I do, it's gonna be, I'm not gonna have my child back.
That's when I came to SARRC, and they helped me to start. What do I need to do? Resources and all of that, but it changes your life.
Sergio had this specific behavior where he would pick up toys and he would flick it above, so it would go right up in the air, and then you'd see his sort of eyes look to the side and he'd listen for it to hit the ground. The clinicians in the classroom collected what we call frequency data on this, so how many times did he actually do this per day? Well, this was happening upwards of a couple hundred times a day.
Rachel said, let's try this. He's gonna have to pick up every single tone. And we did the same thing at home. That started to decrease and decrease and decrease, so he's not doing it anymore.
In the community school, I think we've really gone from making this just a good program to an unbelievably creative, innovative program. We're able to serve kids now and see all sorts of outcomes with kids that are very severely impacted by autism, all the way to the kids that are very high functioning when they start with us. For many years in autism treatment, we've only focused on working with kids one-on-one. But again, as more research has come out about the social deficits of autism, we realize that we need to be focused on getting our kids identified early, in good treatment, and with typically developing peers.
Our plan was to have her come into the community school with Sergio, but not as an autistic child, as a typical child. They told us that they thought that she had autism as well.
Professionally, that was one of the hardest things I have ever done. To sit in a room with a family and turn their world upside down a second time. On the upside, I was also able to help them right away.
She's doing really good. The parent training that we receive every week help us big time, because we can talk to them and tell them this is what is going on, and they always point us in the right direction on how to do things to help them. And every single thing that they have told us to do has worked.
We continue to have wait lists, so we're looking to be able to raise funding so that we can get these parents in to these really important programs. Every day that goes by that they have to wait for services is a day too long. But our children with autism become adults with autism, and the national unemployment rate for our adults is over 90%. You know, and our adults want to work, they're able to work, but you know, they don't even know where to begin.
My job as a job coach is that I first go out to the job site and I meet with the employer and the trainer. Some of the jobs might be from being a busser, to taking tickets at the theater, to working in a retail environment such as a CVS pharmacy. They love what they do. They want to be at work, they enjoy the people that they're around, and they really feel like they're making a significant difference in their community. They're a part of it, and that's a big deal.
So only 10% of our adults with autism are being employed. We've employed over 65% of the adults in our program. With our beneficial beings, really there's three objectives. One is to create awareness in our community. The second, probably the most important, is to be able to employ our adults with autism. And then it's to really create the sustainability for that program so that we are able to provide training for our adults with autism and really help them to find jobs in the community or within the Beneficial Beings business.
This organization is very special. I mean, I've been very fortunate to meet some wonderful people, and I've been very fortunate to take a look at some wonderful organizations. But I have a very, very special place in my heart for this organization and always will. It simply is excellent. I know that there probably is not a better organized, better run, and more frugal organization in terms of getting resources to families and children probably in North America.
We want to focus on early detection, identifying better treatments, both behavioral and pharmaceutical, and we want to really focus on our mission to improve the quality of life for people with autism. We're working on our Think Asperger's program, where we've developed a screening questionnaire that we're implementing in schools among 3rd and 4th graders that will help us to detect Asperger's much earlier than it is generally detected.
When you have your son, your first child, you have all these expectations and all these hopes. You want him to go through many things in life. You want him to be happy, you want him to go to college, you want him to get an education, you want him to have his own family, you have all these things, and then they hit you with this diagnosis. And you're just trying to figure out how to not lose all of that. But we've been getting all those back.
My husband and I, PJ and I, are thinking that he's gonna be able to go to college because he's progressing. Same with Natalia. What we have gained during this time is amazing. And I want all moms who are having the same struggles that I'm having to feel what I feel right now. Hope.
It is an honor to be here this morning. Last year I was planning to attend SARRC's 13th community breakfast. I was going to be here to share with you news about our foundation, the Colonel Harlan Sanders Foundation's support of SARRC's research. A few weeks before the breakfast, for just over 11 minutes, my heart stopped. I'd had a cardiac arrest. It took an emergency physician, cardiac nurse, and a paramedic to get my heart started. They broke every rib in my chest. From the moment my heart stopped until 2 days later, I don't remember a single thing. The medical community calls these things events. They called mine a major event. An event changes your life. It changes who you are, and it changes what you want to do. It also teaches you some things. I learned my life did not belong to me alone. It belonged to my wife, my children, my family, my friends, my grandchildren. But it also belonged to the organizations and families that our foundation has been so privileged to help and work with in the past. It belongs to the organizations and families we have yet to help. I learned I need to take care of myself and control the pace of my life so that I can work with organizations that mean so much to me, and particularly with organizations around autism. My name is Bill Carney. I have the great pleasure to serve as president of the Harlan Sanders Foundation of the United States, vice president of Harlan Sanders Charities in Canada. I also sit on the board of the Zanev Family Foundation of Calgary, a great friend of SARRC's, and an organization that uses its resources to work with adolescents and young adults who are affected by autism. These are all volunteer positions. The example of giving and caring that Colonel Harlan Sanders lived his whole life is one we all should emulate. It has made me realize that everyone can make a difference. Colonel Harlan Sanders was born at the beginning, or just at the turn of the last century. He was 90 years old when he passed away. At the age of 5, he lost his father. At the age of 7, he was indentured as a farm laborer. At the age of 12, he became the sole provider for his entire family. He owned one of the first service stations in Kentucky. He ran 2 rather very unsuccessful restaurants. And at the age of 65, with his first Social Security check, $102, he put a cooker in the back of his car and a package containing those secret spices. And he decided to teach America how to cook chicken. The title colonel was an honorary one, and it was given to him long before wealth and long before fame. It was given to him by the governor of Kentucky for the work he had done in his community. The colonel believed that if your personal needs were met, any extras needed to be shared and needed to be used in his community. He believed that we could all make the world a better place. The colonel taught me that working with our families, working with our community, is a very, very important thing. But my visit here today is a very personal one. I would like you to meet our granddaughter, Charlotte. She is beautiful. She is affectionate. She is an incredibly important part of her life. And 6 years ago, when she was 2.5, we learned that she had been born with a major event. Charlotte had autism. It turned our world upside down. We've worked really hard to learn everything we could about autism. We learned a lot about Charlotte's autism, but we also learned a lot from Charlotte's autism. We learned that the battle to make her life better is a marathon, not a sprint. We learned that there's incredible research going on all over the world, and one of the centers of that research is right here in Phoenix at SARRC. We also learned we owe a great deal to the families of autism that went before us. We owe them the early diagnosis, the wonderful therapies, and the fact that Charlotte's life is better than it ever could have been today. We also learned that we owe a great deal to the families of autism that are yet to come, and that especially we owe a great deal to the families who, for a whole myriad of reasons, have not had the benefits that Charlotte has had, both in diagnosis and in treatment. We also learned we cannot fight this battle alone. We need the help of everyone, including all of the people in this room. The Colonel's dream is alive and well at SARRC. I am convinced that working together across states, across countries, we will find the answers that will defeat this mysterious disorder. It is my goal to continue to weave what we call Charlotte's Web with organizations like SARRC, so that not just Charlotte's life, but all the lives of all the children and all the young adults and adults with autism will be better. We are especially pleased with the creation of the Colonel Harlan Sanders Center for Autism Studies at SARRC. We are grateful to the teams from DPR Construction, Butler Design, and Workspaces, which contributed significantly towards the development of that center, and in doing so have helped everyone's boat float a little bit higher. Our family has really no idea what the future holds for Charlotte, but I can tell you we do know this, that her life is better today and will be better in the future because of the wonderful work done by SARRC. Thank you. It is now my privilege to introduce you to someone who has helped everyone's boat float a little bit higher. SARRC co-founder and medical director, Ron Melman. Ron is a developmental pediatrician, international authority on autism, and one of the most kind-hearted and lovely people that I know. I thank Ron for being part of Charlotte's Web, and I thank him for all of the work that he has done on the behalf of families and children and adults involved in autism. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Well, 20 or 30 years ago, autism was barely heard of. It was something which would not unnerve any parent. It was underserved, it was underdiagnosed. I remember doing a fellowship at Children's Hospital in Boston, which was one of the centers for developmental disabilities. And over a course of a 3-year fellowship period, I didn't make the diagnosis once of autism. And then moving to Phoenix, parents started coming, and the diagnosis started to become very common and almost every day. And the parents had no place to go. It became very clear to me very early on that parents would do absolutely anything. You saw these parents up here. They would do anything. They would travel anywhere. They were convinced that if they could just somehow remove the patina that was covering their child, that the beauty would somehow shine forth and the child would emerge from that cocoon. But it wasn't happening. There was nowhere to go. And that's why 15 years ago, the forces galvanized here in Phoenix, and with Denise, other parents, and myself, SARRC was formed. We were very clear about our initial goals. We wanted to answer questions and question answers. We wanted to respect individuality. All of us are different one from another, and individuals with autism are different as well. And we know that autism represents the final common pathway of a whole variety of different disorders, and that's why we call it autisms. We wanted to protect the family and protect the kingdom of childhood. We wanted to get some kind of clarity out of the chaos that was actually addressing these families. It is a wonderful place to go. And our roots have taken hold. Just a few weeks ago at a function, I sat across from Denise listening to a lecture at SARRC, and we looked at each other and we thought, my God, the roots have taken hold. The blossoms are coming. We're incredibly proud of our programs. From the provinces of Canada, states throughout the United States come to SARRC to try and replicate what we are doing. They want to know, what's the magic? How do you do it? How do you get parents involved? How do you get the physician community involved? What do you do? They want the same thing. I just returned from South Africa. In Cape Town, went to the Red Cross Hospital and spoke to folks about the Jumpstart program and described to them what they could be doing in Cape Town, at the very tip of the continent. And they were amazed and they want to hear more, and I've already got dozens of emails from them. They want Jumpstart down there. When I tell other people from other states about beneficial beings, about the community school, about the grandparents group, about the pre-vocational programs, everybody gets so incredibly excited. It's wonderful. We're very proud of that. We're proud of our pharmaceutical studies. I told you last year about some of the progress we're making. Now, for the very first time, we are doing studies in adults with autism and related disorders. Not only that, our primary outcome measures, that what we are looking at, are not the associated features of autism, such as the anxiety or the attentional problems or the aggression, but they are the core symptoms. Imagine, with pharmaceutical molecules, we might be able to improve an individual's language, their social interaction. In the words of Randy Hageman, one of my colleagues, it does make you want to dance. It's incredibly exciting. It's no wonder that parents line up and we recruit so well nationally for these trials. And of course, when we perform these trials, it's our local families who benefit the most, even though we're part of a national group. And now, the next foray is into adulthood. For too long, we've been in denial about the fact that our children are aging, but it's the truth. Despite our prayers and our hopes, these children become adults, and the services for adults are just at a dearth throughout the country. This is a lifelong condition. We know that these individuals are going to have lifelong challenges with language and with behavior and with social interaction. We know that their parents are often older because older parents are more susceptible to having children with autism. We know that they rarely get married, rarely have children. There's no one else to take care of these individuals. We know that it costs a fortune. Over $100 billion a year is spent on caring for individuals with autism. More than $3 million per child throughout the course of their lifetime will be spent on individuals with autism. And with a flood of individuals coming into adulthood, who's going to take care of that? It's a compelling story. Services for adults is exactly the same as it was 20 years ago for children. There's nothing out there. Well, I shouldn't say that because we have a vocational life skills academy. which is amazing. There's no other community-based, research-based organization in the United States which takes care of adults with autism. So Bill, thank you so much for allowing us to co-locate our Sanders Center for Autism Studies at the Vocational Life Skills Academy. It's absolutely wonderful. And before I forget, I want to make a very happy announcement that we have a new director of the VLSA, Chris Whalen from San Francisco, NSF scholar, will be joining us as the new vice president of SARRC and director of the VLSA. So we're very happy, and please welcome her. She's here at the breakfast with us. So, we know where we've come, we know before whom we stand, and when we think of the future, we just have to get involved. We're buoyed by everything we've done so far. It feels great with the success, but I want to tell you that we're buoyed mostly by the fact that we get such incredible support from all of you, our supporters. So thank you very much for being here. Wow. Okay. So now I'd like to introduce to you some other members of our team under the leadership of our very special stellar president, Jerry Kendall, sitting up here in the front, who provides us with such amazing direction. I'd like to welcome two other vice presidents of SARRC, Director of Research, Dr. Chris Smith, and Director of Clinical Studies, Dr. Danny Openden, who will be telling us about some of the work they're doing right here at SARRC. Chris.
Thank you, Ron.
Danny.
So by now you've heard us mention the statistic 1 in 88 several times. And I want to just tell you a little bit more about where that came from. The CDC, the Centers for Disease Control, has been monitoring the prevalence rates of autism for the last 10 years. And you can see by this table, on the left-hand side are the years of surveillance, right, the left-hand column, and on the right-hand column are the prevalence rates from each year in the study. Across the bottom here is the most recent study. And that 1 in 88 is an average across all of the states that contributed data. And for this most recent study, there were 14 states, and Arizona is one of them. And in Arizona, the rates are actually slightly higher than 1 in 88. They're 1 in 64. Okay? And also, for every report from the CDC, you could see that Arizona, we're the top line, we're actually always slightly ahead of the national average. Okay? Now, there's not any reason to think that living in Arizona presents any increased risk for having a child with autism. But what it does mean, right, is that if you have a child with autism in Arizona, that we're pretty good at detecting it. Sometimes better than some of the other states that contribute data to this project. And we're particularly good among diagnosing autism among blacks and Hispanics, and that's very good for us. But there's another statistic in this report that I find a little bit more troubling, that the average age of diagnosis is somewhere between 4.5 and 6.5. And I find this troubling because we know from decades of research that early intensive behavioral intervention is the best treatment for the most number of people with autism. And 4.5 to 6.5 is not early. At SARRC, we're very good at detecting the early warning signs of autism, and we've done so in kids as young as 17 months. And some of the things that we look for are the absence of typical behavior or age-appropriate behaviors that modulate social interaction. Things like eye contact, things like reciprocal social smiling, so when somebody smiles at them, they smile back. Age-appropriate levels of communication, so they can communicate with other people and have meaningful interactions. But also, what we look for is that childhood, that kingdom of childhood that Ron referenced before, that should be an enjoyable place. Kids should want to interact with other people. They should want to interact with their peers and their parents because that's how they learn. Now I'm going to show you a very short video clip here of a mother interacting with her 8-month-old infant. And she's trying to teach him to sign the word help, right? So giving him a meaningful way to communicate. And I want you to pay attention in the video to how much fun they're having, okay? And I also want you to pay attention to the look on the infant's face. You can't see the mother's face in the video, but you can look at that infant's face and you can see him eagerly looking at that mother's eyes, making eye contact with her, attempting to get more information about this interaction. So let's take a quick look. All interactions should be that fun. As a matter of fact, Ron Melman and I have interactions like that all the time. That's why we work so well together. So, but you can see, this is meaningful. This is why kids do this. They interact because it's fun, and that helps them to learn, and that helps them to develop. Some of the other things that we look for when we're trying to recognize autism early are things that maybe interfere with that, or interfere with those kinds of interactions, like repetitive behaviors, throwing toys like we saw in the video earlier, or kids that want to stare at their hands or flap their hands instead of interacting with other people. That's really problematic. And also, sometimes kids have excessive irritability, and that excessive irritability prevents them from having typical interactions. And it prevents them from engaging in all of these other types of sensory input that helps them to learn and develop, okay? And I'm going to show you another short video here, and this is of a 17-month-old that came to us for an assessment. And during this type of assessment, what we do is we present things to the child, toys, balloons, bubbles, books, pictures, things that would engage any typically developing infant. And that helps us to know whether or not the child has the skills to modulate those types of social interactions. But what I want you to pay attention to in this video, because it's really quick, is how many different things that we tried and how pervasive the irritability is across all situations. So let's take a look at that video. So I know that was fast, but I mean, you can get an idea of how pervasive that irritability is. And while it interrupted all of those interactions, it also interrupted the assessment. We said, you know, she's a little bit too irritable today. Why don't you go home, come back another day when you're feeling a little bit better, and we'll try it again. And we did it again, and she was still irritable. And it wasn't only in that assessment that she's irritable. She's irritable in the classroom with her classmates and teachers. And she's irritable at home with her siblings and her mother and her father. And that interrupts, that prevents those learning opportunities, and it prevents her from learning from those opportunities, and it slows down development. So when we see things like that at SARRC, we get concerned. And we don't just get concerned, we act. And in just a few minutes, Danny's going to tell you a little bit more about what we do in that type of situation. But I want to make one other point, that while we're getting better at detecting autism earlier, it's not quite enough. Okay? We need to get better we need to stop waiting for those delays and those behaviors to emerge before we act and before we get concerned. We need to tap into what's happening prior to that emergence. They don't just flip on like a light switch. Okay? They're very likely the product of disrupted learning that perhaps starts from very early in life. And we think it starts with eye contact. Right? From day one, when that infant makes eye contact with their caregiver, with their mother or father, they begin to learn. And they begin to form neural pathways that support more sophisticated interactions. So when eye contact remains critically important throughout infancy, it's also important when kids get on the playground and they want to make a friend. It's important when they're teens and they want to ask somebody out for the first time, or when they get a job, or even, and I don't know this myself, but even when they get pulled over by a police officer. But our president, Jerry Kendall, knows this. She told me to say it. So all this stuff is critically important, and it all comes back to eye contact. So in a new study at SARRC, what we want to do is we want to measure the brain's reaction to eye contact, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to take infants, we're going to give them back, but we're going to take them, and we're going to put EEG caps on their head, all right? And those EEG caps will help us to measure the electrical activity when a stimulus is presented to that infant. In this case, eye contact with the caregiver in a very controlled environment where that will help us to get these types of measurements. And if we can measure disruption at this point in time, then we may have identified the earliest known predictor for autism. And you know what's good about that is then we can develop interventions that will help us to get that child's brain or activity on track and perhaps prevent those delays and behaviors from ever emerging. That's key. So with your support and your help, we can make this happen. We can do this study. And then if we identify what we think we can identify, we can dramatically improve the outlook for future generations. Thank you very much.
Excellent, Chris. What's so exciting about the work that Chris is doing with measuring early infant eye contact is that we're going to begin to identify children with autism at younger and younger ages. But the challenges for us on the treatment side is then to develop treatments that address autism in younger and younger children. Now, earlier in our video, you were introduced to the Rivera family, and you saw that autism struck not once, but twice in that family when their younger daughter, Natalia, was diagnosed with autism. At 17 months of age, she was diagnosed, and we were there and we were watching that because we know that research that came out late last summer indicated that if you have one child with autism in your family, your chances of having a second child increased by about 20%. So we were watching, and our research team was evaluating. And thanks to the quality of our research team under Chris's leadership, we were able to identify Natalia's autism at 17 months of age. 17 months is really young, and that's really exciting for us because as therapists, we know that that gives us the opportunity to literally change the course of her development. At 17 months of age, the furthest she could be behind is 17 months. Compare that to when we get a child that's 3 or 4 or 5 years old. But what does treatment look like for a 17-month-old, a baby, essentially? Well, you have to start with understanding, as Chris said, that at the heart of what autism is a social disorder. And as you saw in the videos, that was Natalia that Chris was showing in those assessment videos. No matter how hard we try to engage her with all these fun games and activities, she is avoidant of that social interaction. In fact, she's highly irritable as she avoids that social interaction. Well, on the treatment side, we look at that as something we call learned helplessness. And learned helplessness is an inability to see how my behavior produces meaningful consequences in my environment. So for our kids with autism, they have a difficult time seeing how things that they do impact the world around them. And so they withdraw, they become helpless. They learn to become helpless. Now in toddlers with autism, we address learned helplessness by teaching them to talk. And right away, they start to understand how talking gets me things I want. And we start to get rid of that learned helplessness. But teaching a 17-month-old child with high rates of irritability to talk may be a little bit premature. And what we wanted to do was identify a pre-verbal communicative behavior and teach her to do that instead. Under the supervision of our community school director, Rachel McIntosh, Andrea Edgar implemented a program at home with mom, teaching Natalia to use eye contact to get the things she wants. And I'll show you a video in just a second, but here's how we did it. We got Natalia's favorite video. We put it in, we let it play, and immediately hit pause. And you'll see in the video, mom's got her finger right over that play button. And what she's waiting for is Natalia to simply redirect her attention and make eye contact, and boom, we're gonna start that video. Now, in a typical child, that might take anywhere from 2 to 4 seconds. For Natalia, it's gonna be about 25 seconds. Watch how difficult it is for her to disengage from the TV and shift her attention to make eye contact with mom. Take a look.
Play.
Great.
Natalia has just learned how to make that video play. She needs to make eye contact with mom. And now we're going to fast forward just 6 minutes later in that same exact therapy session. And you'll see that Natalia is now making frequent eye contact with mom, not only to get that video to play, but also to start to share that enjoyment within the interaction. Take a look.
Wow, look at you, Miss. Good job.
So great.
The earliest form of intentional communication is eye contact. And now Natalia has learned how her behavior, eye contact, can produce meaningful consequences playing the movie. And that's really exciting for us. So now we're going to move ahead 8 months later so that you can see the impact of our focus on eye contact on later language development in Natalia. This video is taken in her inclusive preschool classroom at SARRC's community school. She's in the classroom with her typically developing peers, and the teacher is asking her to give her animal sounds or produce animal sounds. And what I want you to watch for is how eye contact is maintained. Language has increased. And just like that video that Chris showed you earlier with the baby that was so socially motivated by his mother, she's motivated, she's happy, she's eager to interact with the teacher as she responds with her peers. Take a look.
Natalia, what does a cow say? Good job. What does a horse say? Yay! Good job. What does a sheep say? What does a pig say? Oink, oink. What does a chicken say? Cock-a-doodle-doo. You're right. What does a duck say? Quack, quack, quack. Good job.
If we can begin to identify autism early and earlier, we have the potential to literally change the game. With your support, we can extend the development of treatments in this very young population of children with autism, maximize the number of children in Arizona that we reach and have access to early intervention, and perhaps even prevent the onset of later autistic symptoms. Thank you very much.
Oh, those are amazing moody videos. I'm sure you appreciate it. The painstaking work that goes into figuring out how to make baby steps changes in the life of a child, but it works, and the parents are just so incredibly grateful for each of those steps. It's the hardest thing. As Rachel said, when a young family sits in front of you, in my professional life, it is every single time it happens, I want to shiver, and I'm not sure if I can hold it together for the course of it. But if you just imagine a young 23-year-old mum and 24-year-old husband, and they're sitting there, and they kind of know why they're there, and they're incredibly fearful of what you're about to say. You say it, and the mother's eyes wells up with tears, and the father looks away, and I'm not even sure if she hears anything after that, and it's a very poignant, emotionally challenging situation, because I just have to figure out, what's this mother going to do? Is she going to feel so depressed? Is she going to go home? Can she have any hope? How can we instill that hope? And what's the father going to do? And is the marriage going to stay together? And is he going to just want to just drive off somewhere over a cliff or something? And then thank God for SARRC, because it's hard to do it all, and parents have to go somewhere, and SARRC is that place to go, and they can go down there and meet other parents. So how do you emerge from that grief that comes with parenting a child? And how do you emerge from that grief to achieve a position of power within the community and esteemed leadership in the country? A visionary for community development and a facilitator of national initiatives. How do you make every single person you meet feel that what they say is really important and makes a difference? How do you do all that and keep your child healthy and keep your own family private and nurtured and protected and hallowed? How do you do all that? I've seen it done. It's been by observing my dear friend Denise Resnick, a respectful co-founder. I've learned the answers to those questions, Denise. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, Denise.
Well, children certainly do change your life. My husband Rob and I are fortunate to have two amazing kids. Next month, our daughter Allie will be graduating from college at the top of her class. She's determined her career path, she's lined up a job, and she'll be heading to rabbinical school. Next year, our son Matthew will be graduating from high school at the age of 22, and his adult life plan is not nearly as clear. What will he do? Where can he work? How do we best support him? Sometimes I think, maybe we should just sequester him in our home. He's so sweet and he's so innocent. He's never done a mean thing to anyone in his entire life. We could continue to enjoy his playful spirit, his stanzas of zippity-doo-dah first thing in the morning, and his cold feet in the middle of the night when he occasionally jumps in bed because he wants to snuggle with us. But we know that's not what's best for Matthew. That's not what's going to help him continue to develop and to continue to grow. So last year, Rob and I developed a pretty long list of all the things that we would need to do to help Matthew transition to adulthood. And working with SARRC's new pilot parent training program and transition program for adults, we identified a few manageable objectives, two of which included dressing and diet. Now consider for Matt, concepts are really difficult, like why you have to take off the sweater that you put on in the morning when the temperature spikes to 90 degrees in the afternoon. And his overloaded sensory system has made nutrition a problem since the beginning. His gag reflex hasn't helped either. So Rob identified the most motivating thing for Matt these days has been his iPad. So working with the team at SARRC, what they did is to start routing all the objectives that we were working on through his iPad. His monthly schedule is on the iPad, his daily list, detailed list, which he enjoys checking off one at a time. Actually, he enjoys crossing them off more than he enjoys actually doing the activities. Who can't relate to that? And then there's the weather app. Matt has set up to now check his weather app in the evening and check into the corresponding chart in his room to determine whether he should be wearing long pants or short sleeves. And my personal favorite is Snack Scrabble. Yes, you heard it right, Snack Scrabble. That means Matt is motivated by his iPad Scrabble game, but Rob will only allow him to take a turn when he's chewed and swallowed a tiny morsel of food. So in the past few months, Matt has eaten vegetable chips, banana chips, apple chips, dried fruit, and last week it was big news when I came home when Matt had eaten 9 kernels of corn and hadn't given them back to us. But we're not the only family that's going through transition. Consider that there are 500,000 children in our country who are going to be entering adulthood in the next decade. Also consider that when the school bus stops coming, so do the supports. The federal system doesn't connect all of our supports. And longitudinal studies are now telling us that after children graduate from high school, they often lose skills, stop talking in complete sentences, increase some bad behaviors, all because they no longer have that routine and the structure of school. And I think about all those years, all those hours, all that expense of early intervention. We cannot afford to allow our kids to slide backwards. And because of SARRC, we're not. Consider our Good Deed Works program. We have teens, 225 of them, volunteering in about 30 nonprofits across the valley. They're learning new skills, building their resume, making friends, and helping this community understand that individuals with autism have value and can become productive working members of our community. They are paired with peer mentors from Valley High Schools, and together they have contributed more than 30,000 hours of volunteer service in the past few years. And in our employment services program, we have nearly 100 individuals, adults with autism, who are now gainfully employed because they've received training and job coaches, and because of many of you who have given our adults with autism a chance to succeed. You can read about one of my favorite stories in the issue of outreach on your tables. I'd like to introduce you to Frank. Frank works at Alliance Beverage. He works that late night shift from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. And I understand he's the first to arrive and the last to leave. I also understand from management that Frank has changed the culture of that late night shift for the better. And that's what we often find, that when we have individuals with autism or those who are more vulnerable among us, it can bring out a more supportive culture, and it can bring out the best in all of us. But we need to do more. We need more jobs for more adults who are looking for work. And we need to provide for those individuals who are not going to be able to work in a competitive environment. And we also need to make sure that SARRC's vocational programs can achieve sustainability. And that's why we're very proud of our social enterprises. One example is Beneficial Beans, and I hope you've enjoyed drinking it this morning. Our clients have been roasting, sorting, and packaging coffee. You can buy it today in the lobby, and you can also soon buy it at your favorite Walmart store. SARRC has been growing up with our kids throughout the years. We've demonstrated success. We've demonstrated where we needed to go. We've demonstrated, too, that individuals with autism do have capacity and they can continue to learn and grow at every age. And now imagine a place where individuals with autism could live. Imagine a contemporary residential property in the heart of the city of Phoenix that includes 4 sale condos, a transition program, and a training institute. Consider that it's integrated in the very fabric of our community, that it's within walking distance of the light rail, and that it is supported by a system of support care providers and amenities that help increase an individual's independence to the greatest degree possible and thereby reduce the cost of their lifetime care. And now let's take a ride on the light rail. Think about the CVS pharmacy and some of those employers in Midtown Phoenix where our adults with autism will be working. And think about the YMCA where our adults will be working out as part of our PowerWorks program. And then there's the Burton Bar Library where they'll be volunteering as part of Library Works. And Roosevelt Road Garden as part of our Garden Works program. They're going to be grooming the garden and other urban gardens. And they'll be selling Beneficial Beans and the Culinary Works gourmet soup in the downtown market. And think about the opportunities for them to continue to grow, to learn, and to develop, to take advantage of our arts and culture venues, of the Science Center, and certainly of Lucky Strike Bowling Alley. Think about this as an opportunity to create a new home prototype for individuals with autism and related disorders, and new hope for families. We've been evaluating this for years. We've researched nearly 100 different residential programs across the country and visited and experienced many. And what we're talking about doesn't exist. And it won't exist until SARRC builds it. Because there's no other community in the country that is as connected and as supported as this community. As I think about this next journey for Rob and me and the three of us, I think that we're going to need our own iPad apps. We're going to need our own tracking systems and communication systems, and making sure that Matt realizes that the cell phone is for talking, not just dialing. We also need to be assured that we have a trusted support system. And as parents, we also need to learn how to let go. But it's during our lifetimes that we need to see Matt successfully live in a home of his own. We need to do it to make sure that it's the best that it can be, not just for Rob and me, but for Grammy Patty and Papa Herb and Grandma Susie, for Auntie Debbie, and for all of our family and friends who have supported Matt through the years. Because the most daunting question for a parent of a child with autism is who's going to care for him when we're no longer here? And that's what keeps us up at night. And that's what drives me. Sure, I'm fearful, but what drives me even more is hope. And the hope that we can create a better life for Matthew, for the Lawrence twins. And when a family is told that their child has autism, we want them to also be told that your child can have a job, can have a home of his own, can have friends, and have a community that supports him. And there's no community better than this one. The reason for our success here at SARRC, the reason that we're known across the country and in some cases around the world, is because of you. It's because you answer our calls. You respond to our invitations to come to breakfast. You roll up your sleeves and you hold our hands. And for that, we are most grateful. Thank you. And it is now my supreme honor to introduce you to a very, very special friend. She is the founding and the only president of our grandparent support group, and she is the only person at our campus for exceptional children that has a dedicated parking space. I'm proud to introduce you to none other than Kathy Bosco, our spirited friend and loving grandmother.
It's been my privilege to work with the grandparents. It's a very special group. I'm a grandparent. I have a grandchild who's 14 years old who has autism. He could not speak. He could not live in our world. Solak had to learn to speak, and he did it. But he wanted a friend, and he found it. And he wanted to go to school, and he wanted to learn in a typical environment, and he's done it. And the greatest joy I've ever had is watching him go step by step by step, making a better life for himself. Now this morning, you have heard some fantastic things that SARRC is doing. You've watched them, you've seen them, and they are so important. But the most important thing about this morning is you. You being here with us. Table captains, would you please open the envelope on your table. Distribute to each of your guests the pledge card. Now, I want to tell you something. There are 1,600 people in this room. And there are 1,600 pens in this room. I know that because I was with the grandparents when we placed them right there for you. Let's pick up that pen and take up that pledge card. And let me just go through very quickly what those numbers might mean. Table captains, after everyone is done doing what they would like to do with the card, would you be sure to collect them and put them in the envelope? For $25,000 a year donation, we could enroll 50 families in the Jump Start program. You've heard a lot about that. 50 families. But if you so desired to give an extended pledge for 5 years for $25,000, we could service 250 families. Wow, unbelievable. For $10,000 a year, we would be able to help the Hispanic Outreach Program, those often underserved people. For $5,000 a year, we could serve the families in those remote areas that have no one to help in their areas with autism in their family. We could then have the help from SARRC's innovative telemedical program. For $1,000 a year, we could take the adults and help them to be independent in the life skills program. But you know what? We haven't forgotten the rest. At the very bottom, there are a couple of places in that list of numbers where you can choose what you would like to do yourself as a pledge. There has never been too large of a pledge or too small of a pledge. And at the very bottom of all of those little squares, there's a square that says, "Call me, I'd like to help." And if you choose to do that also, I'll call you. I'll call you. And I won't talk about money. I'll talk about what your needs for SARRC are, that you want to do for us. I love SARRC. I love what they have done and are doing. I love it. They've always met the challenge. But now they have a bigger challenge. They have a national challenge. Do you understand that of all the states that they surveyed for autism, we were number 3 in our nation? The ones surveyed? That's incredible. We've got a challenge that we've never had before, but we've always met our challenge, no matter what it was. SARRC's door's been open, and whoever walked through it with autism, they say, come in. How can we help? And we want to do that with this national challenge. And we can, and we're going to. But we're going to have to open that door wider and wider and wider to meet that needs. We need to hire people. We need to train more people. We need to expand the programs that we have. And we're going to do it. And we're going to do it the right way. And we can do it if you can help. Won't you please help us? 1,600 people in this room. Do you realize the power and the magic that we could do for this epidemic in our own community? That would be lovely. That would be big. That would be everything that we dream of. I've lived for many, many years. I've had some sorrow and I had some joy. But the greatest joy that I have said to you earlier was watching my grandson take those steps, go higher and higher, make a better life for himself. Later this morning, when you walk through those doors and out of this building, I would hope and want for you to have that same joy, knowing that you have put something down on that pledge card, that you've changed one life, maybe many lives, that have autism. That's a great joy. Now, I've got a gift for you. I don't want anybody to leave the room because we need to give you something for being here. It is with my great pleasure that I have the honor to introduce, I'm going to get this right now, as I got to say it right, Boston Scott, a very talented young man who has a younger brother named Jake who has autism. A gift to you.
Why can't they understand the way we feel? They just don't trust what they can't explain. I know we're different, but deep inside us, we're not that different at all. And you'll be in my heart. Yes, you'll be in my heart. From this day on, now and forevermore. Don't listen to them, 'cause what do they know? We need each other to have to hold. They'll see in time, I know. When destiny calls you, you must be strong. I may not be with you, but you've got to hold on. They'll see in time, I know. We'll show them together, 'cause you'll be in my heart. Believe me, you'll be in my heart. I'll be there from this day on, now and forevermore. Ooh, you'll be in my heart, no matter what they say. You'll be here in my heart, always, always. I'll be with you. I'll be there for you always, always and always. Just look over your shoulder. Just look over your shoulder. Just look over your shoulder. I'll be there always.
Isn't he wonderful? Isn't he? He gave you a gift this morning. I want to thank you for coming, listening, learning, and contributing. May the joy I feel and we at SARRC feel go with you out the door and out of the building. Thank you so very much for coming.